Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the tie-in.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the tie-in. Today, we're speaking with Alex and Allison from the Local 600 Union. Based, they're based in LA. But the union is national.
Yeah, it's national. They have been like warriors out there, kind of developing various initiatives and engaging folks. And uh, I think, they're kind of at the forefront, I think, for the labor world in terms of activities within a green committee.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So
I'm,
they're the chair of they're both chairs of the Green Committee,
yeah,
Sustainability Committee.
sustainability committee within Local 600. So
Hmm.
have a really, and they work on set, they're camera
Hmm.
people, right? So this is where, like, really getting into crew behind the scenes, what they think, how they're working in their local union, these kinds of things. Um,
Yeah, it's almost grassroots, true grassroots initiatives, and unsung heroes that are really pouring their heart and souls into this work.
yeah. So let's dive into what they
Yeah.
have to say. Hi, Alex and Allison. Welcome to the tie-in.
Hey guys.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks
Oh,
for having us. I've
yeah.
been listening to a lot of your episodes, and I just want to say thank you because I don't know, you've interviewed so many like really cool people, and I feel honored to, camera assistant Alex gets to give her 2 cents. So thanks.
It's a
Yeah.
community effort.
It
It's cool.
totally is. And it's interesting, because our whole premise behind this is to elevate the voices of people doing amazing work behind the scenes, right? And you both are part of that. I mean, you're doing a lot of work in sustainability behind the scenes and in your particular department. So we're excited to hear your perspective, what you're seeing, how you're doing it, all of the stuff. So thanks for coming
Challenges.
on. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah. So you're both local 600 members. Let's, start there in the camera department, right?
Yes.
So tell us um, about yourself, your kind of a bit of origin story, how you got into this, how you started thinking about sustainability, and what your role is day to day.
Sure. I'll just start with just giving a little bit of background. So Alex and I are part of the Local 600 Sustainability Committee. We were established in 2019, and we were really inspired by the PGA Call to Action letter that was released in 2021 with the goal of reducing carbon emissions by 50% by the year 2030. So when we were crafting our mission statement, we really wanted to focus on two key components, education and action. And you know, in the context of that the film production process, it generates a lot of waste, it produces a lot of carbon emissions, and so we just wanted to focus on what we could do within the camera department to make a difference, and we feel like we have a responsibility to lead the way in addressing climate change. So anyway, I'm the Western Region chair of the committee, and Alex is one of our Western Region committee members. And yeah, Alex, do you want to give a little bit of backstory just on kind of how you got involved, or why this is one of your passions?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a camera assistant at Medical 600. I'm a second AC. Um, I don't know. I've always just like loved nature and earth and had like I've always wondered about like the manufacturing process and like how things are made and then what happens to them. And like trash is such an interesting object archaeologically, like consumeristically, in a society sense. Like it's such a reflection of who we are as individuals and collective societies. And so I've always been like a recycling nerd and like, no, that must go in the bin of like, no, we can't put more in the landfill. And so then when I found out that our local had a sustainability committee, I was like, I want to be a part of that. And now here I am. And it's been changing a bit. I joined when our committee kind of changed forms. And so now it's more, I mean, it was always volunteer based, Allison, right? But
Yeah.
now it's just like a different type of committee within our union.
Yeah, so we've become more regional. So one of the big things is we have committee members in 5 major cities. So it's not just LA and New York like we always think about, or Atlanta. We also have folks in Chicago, and then we also have folks in the Albuquerque, Santa Fe area as well. So we have our New Mexico faction as well. So we've just been really focusing on generating member solidarity with events that we're planning in all of those regions. So it's become much more of a sort of national but regional approach to sustainability. So in the past, we were more focused on sort of what was going on in LA, and now we're really trying to generate action in the other cities, which has been really exciting. One of the Chicago has been really inspiring. We have 4 really exciting folks there who are really pushing to make a difference in that community. And one of the things that we just got off the ground was we always do e-waste collection. That's kind of been one of our things that we've started in the last 3 years, because when we talk about the camera department and the kind of waste, just again, going back to trash, like Alex said, the trash waste that we're talking about, it's mostly electronic based, but also just in our personal lives too, right? Like we all watch TV, we have hard drives at home, memory cards, batteries, toaster ovens, whatever, all those things, but also in our own department, batteries especially. So what's really exciting is we've been hosting these usually 1 or 2 times a year in each of the major cities I mentioned, but Chicago just established the Local 600 Chicago offices are now going to be a year-round e-waste drop-off site for members, which is really exciting. And they can take all the things we talked about: watches, fluorescent lights, phones, laptops, hard drives. So we're just really excited. We're hoping this sort of lays the foundation for maybe being able to implement this in the other cities if it's successful. So that's really exciting. The other big thing we just started was we have a partnership with EcoSet in Los Angeles, which is a really wonderful organization that is trying to tackle material circularity. When we talk about material circularity, usually this is in the context of the art department or costume, but we, again, looked internally about what are the things that we are generating, and one of the big things is expendables, camera expendables specifically. So we were in conversations with them for a little bit, and then we just a couple months ago established. So we have a physical centralized location where now folks can come and bring their camera expendables to EcoSet, and then they get redistributed into the community for free. So anyone who works, if you're just a film student or if you work in theater, independent filmmaker, you can come and pick up any of these sort of gently used items for free. So it's just really exciting because we do generate waste within our own department as well. And maybe it doesn't seem as bad, like there's a lot of pointing fingers, like the sound department has more batteries than the camera department. Everyone's always like trying to point fingers at each other a little bit, but I think that ultimately this is just a great way to kind of come together as a community and again, just try to recirculate, because I think we talk about recycling so much. And I think the thing that I've really learned through this process is it's that whole reduce, reuse, recycle, and it really is reduce. We have to focus on reduction and stopping waste generation at the source, because recycling is the last step. Like that's like the worst case. It should never have to get to that point, right? So then again, with EcoSet, we're talking about reuse, the middle step. So yeah, anyway, just really focusing on waste reduction as kind of one of our big key components kind of moving forward.
I love it. And just to keep it at a high level, are you coordinating all of your initiatives then through all the various cities, and so you've rallied around the e-waste recycling? Are there other directives that are specific to either each area that you're adopting as an organization? I'm just maybe talk us through some of that, how that works, because it sounds like each region has different needs and priorities. However, clearly there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah. So we sort of tried to come up with a few main initiatives, and then yes, applied those to the 5 cities, and we're still growing those volunteer-based, like Alex said, and trying to figure out who are the people with the boots on the ground to kind of do the work. But yes, so obviously e-waste is a really big one. We also really focus on panels at trade shows. That's another big thing for us. So we specifically in sustainability, right, in that conversation. So again, we are a regional committee, so we host panels usually as part of NAB Las Vegas, NAB in New York. We do Cinegear in Atlanta, Cinegear in LA, and then also Filmscape is the main trade show in Chicago. And so we plan around sort of specific, like you said, every region has a really specific challenges to sustainability. Some cities are more established with this conversation than others. And so we try to tailor each conversation to what that community wants to talk about and gaining insight into that specific conversation. When it comes to NAB Las Vegas, that is more of an international kind of national conversation. So that is more generalized, I would say, but the other ones are very specific to each city and kind of what do people want to hear about at those trade shows. So that's one of the other big things we do. And then the other component, well, I guess there's a few other things, but obviously Earth Day is a big part of our committee. And so one of the big things we've been really working in different cities. Again, each city has different things that they want to focus on. And we have members that are passionate about different things. So in Atlanta, we're really focused on tree planting. That's a really big, we have a big organization based there for doing partnering with Trees Atlanta, which is a really wonderful organization. And then, in Chicago, we do a lot of community garden cleanups. Then LA or New York, it's more like river cleanups. In New York, we actually have an Adopt a Highway. We adopted a highway, a stretch along Route 9. And so we are actually doing cleanups as part of that process. So yeah, each city sort of has a different appeal or like a different layout, right? So what would be the thing that would be more helpful there? And so we try to have our volunteer base, guided around that. And then in terms of maybe more nationally, looking at things that we're doing kind of nationally as an organization, we also are part of the Labor Network for Sustainability. We are an institutional ally. It's our 5th year with them. They're really a wonderful organization. And, that's been kind of an important part of, I don't know how to put it exactly, but in terms of connecting, I think one of the biggest struggles we have in our union is as a camera department member, I am passionate about climate, being climate activist, but why does what I do for my job connect to climate change? I think we're trying to really educate members on why being a camera department member still means that you are contributing to the waste and the carbon emissions that's existing in the world. And California is the 5th largest economy in the world. And one of the big components of that is the film industry. You can't deny that. I know that's just one state, but just in general, the industry, I think most folks understand climate change and they want to, you plant a tree, clean up a river, but they don't understand what their jobs have to do with it. And I think for us, learning about organizations like Labor Network for Sustainability, we also are allies with Everyday Action in LA, which reallocates catering from food on set to homeless communities in LA. And I think just partnering with these organizations really establishes where's the connection between what we do for a living and why we should care. And one of the mottos of Labor Network for Sustainability is making a living on a living planet, which has always really resonated for me. And so we are allies of other organizations. And then I guess the other component, the last thing that we kind of do nationally is we've had a tradition for the last 3 years to contribute to an organization called One Tree Planted, which plants trees where it's needed most in the nation, also in the world, but we focus mostly in the US. And we plant in honor of members who've passed away. And so we've done this since 2022. It's been a really moving experience. Alex and I have sort of personally taken this on, and we reach out to the families of the members who've passed away, and we personally make sure that they get a certificate that is, dedicated to each individual member, and a very specific number of trees is planted for each member based on how based on their age at the time of passing. So it's a really specific process, and trying to get contact information for folks. It's been a long journey, but it's been really heartwarming to talk to the families. It's been emotional, obviously, but it also just feels like
a collective grieving
yes,
process.
exactly. I was just gonna say it's like this collective grieving process, but it's this way to build, again, union solidarity, but in the context of climate action. I think that that's been really powerful, and so that's something we've been really proud of as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really lovely tie-in too, because when we do it, like if you pass at 70, we plant 70 trees. And when you calculate it all up, and it's like each year we're planting around 3,000 trees, and it's like, wow, like that many years of life, like it was close to that number of years contributed to our union. And then now they're kind of like being honored in a tree that will keep on growing for our next members and our next generation. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful program. Wow. It sounds like you all are doing quite a lot. I'm curious, Alex, like as you look out into the membership and as you're talking about all of these things that are going on in various locations and whatnot, what are you sensing in terms of like crew morale and folks who are engaged in these activities? Like how are they feeling? How are they talking? What's your sense?
I feel like it's a real mixed bag. Um, you always have like the few nerds like us who are like, yeah, let's do it. Like let's make some changes. Um, and you have most of people are kind of like middle of the line. You have some people who have some pushback. I think COVID really took it a step in a negative direction in terms of waste on set. And like I know plenty of people who bring their own water bottles to set and maybe even hopefully their own reusable utensils. But then after everything was saran wrapped apples, like, come on. It was just really discouraging to see the huge amount of waste that came from the necessity of like keeping things separate and clean, but like it could have been done a better way. But the plus side of I think Allison, you had some thoughts on like how COVID shifted our mindset of like how we can come together collectively as different members of the IA to set new standards for how to change how we work in a workspace. And it'd be really cool to implement those that focused, like deadline based action of like, okay, this is what we're going to do about this. And I wish that same mindset could be applied to climate problems, especially I feel like in LA, we definitely feel the heat stress side of things, talking about localized actions. I've been giving away hygrometers at various events, which measure relative humidity because local 891, I think, in Canada made the heat stress app. And so you plug in your temperature, your relative humidity, you answer a few questions about your workplace, boom, it gives you a metric for like how safe or unsafe is your working condition, which is a great numerical evidence to, send over to production and be like, hey, we need a shade break. But going back to morale on set, when you're working a week in the desert, like no one cares about recycling water. They just care about staying hydrated.
Yeah.
And so it's this crazy balance of like, well, we got to get through the job. We got to get through the job safely. And then sustainability always comes last, which is unfortunate. So that's something that we definitely need to shift the focus towards prep time for it more, budgeting a little bit for it more. But at the end of the day, if we can, keep everything in a cycle of reuse and like not just throw our sets away and, have actual refills of water on set, it'll be for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. People
Yeah.
notice that stuff.
I
Yeah.
think one thing that Alex is sort of touching on is something that we've really learned in the last, I would say, year or so, is that it's really important how you frame this conversation. And for us, sustainability, we now realize that the angle in is it needs to be in the context of crew health and safety. So that really connects with members, right? When you understand that you are in extreme heat conditions or extreme cold conditions, but that could be in a soundstage, right? Like it's a choice from the beginning at prep where you're shooting. Why are we shooting on location when we have all these other opportunities that we can achieve now with visual effects and and special effects on set. Like it's an interesting conversation. And obviously that's not necessarily a camera department member's choice as a AC or operator. Like you get told where to show up on set, that's where you go. But I think the idea of these hygrometers and having tools, there is contract services has an environmental safety, I think A2 course. We have conversations, it's there, but it's just not at the forefront, I think, of the conversation. It's kind of all trickling in about environmental safety and hazards. And OSHA has all of these, and NIOSH have all of these resources on their website. Like clearly working outside in the environment you are a climate worker, right? And so we need to tie that together. And I think so anyway, in the context of crew safety, that really resonates with people because they're like, yeah, I'm working in terrible, smoke conditions, or when we were all wearing masks, right? Like it's hard to breathe in 105-degree heat with a mask on top of that. And so, yeah, we are just trying to stay hydrated. You're just trying to survive. But why? But if you think about the context of what that means, it's like if we just had put sustainability and environmental thought into the production process ahead of time, we wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. And that's why it needs to be at the beginning of the conversation before we even start shooting.
And another footnote about OSHA, all those regulations are written for an 8-hour day, which is not our business. And like all of our safety bulletins, they're not law, they're guidelines, which is great. I want a guideline at the minimum, but just to be considerate that these recommendations, or at least the OSHA ones, come from an 8-hour workday, and they don't study beyond our very long extended workdays.
Yeah.
And along those notes, maybe take us into the life of a camera person. What does a day in the life of a camera person look like in a harsh environment?
Gosh.
Or any environment, really.
Yeah, any
like
environment for that
what
matter.
does your day-to-day look like? Or like when you're starting a project, like when do you even come on board? When do you like what are the opportunities for conversations early on? Like kind of walk us through that.
I mean, I think okay, Alex, you want to start?
Go ahead. I was just going to say, like, for me, not so much. Like as a loader, I might get a day of prep on a big show, maybe a week, which would be great. As a second AC, a little more, but even so, I'm not first in the line of prep. And Allison is an operator. I don't know if that differs for the reality world. Like, how does it work there?
No, I mean, we may have a rehearsal day, right? If it's a live show, then you have one rehearsal day, but by then all the gear is there, right? The set is there. There's just like last minute tweaks kind of. But yeah, we don't get any prep days. I think it really does come to the DPs, right? They are the head of our department. And I think having talked to other DPs, what I would say is that they are in a unique position because they are brought in during prep, unlike us, that they actually have this interesting position where they can talk to the crew, they can talk to us and see what our needs are, but then they can talk to the producers, right? They're kind of the go-between. And I think that, they have the ability to speak up. They have the ability to kind of make decisions early on. Do we want to try an electric generator versus diesel? I think that there just needs to be more open communication between producers, the DP, gaffer, from the very beginning, so that, it's a lot of education too, right? Because there is technology, there's clean tech out there, right? But a lot of people just don't know about it. I was on a call the other day with a location manager who just didn't have the tools. Like he's passionate about this, but he doesn't have the toolkit about where are the different like generators, what is the technology out there that I could offer to rent, so we don't need to maybe go on this location. We could try pivoting to a different location. Like I think a lot of it is, again, it goes back to education. Just the information's out there. It's just about connecting the different organizations, connecting the different resources and tools to the different people to make sure people feel supported, because people are scared of what they don't know, right? And so in this case, the information is there. It's just the folks that know, and the folks that don't. And so it's about really educating the ones that aren't in this conversation and making them feel more comfortable about volt stacks, battery generators, things like that. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't feel like we have a lot to do with the conversation as, camera operators, first ACs, second ACs. But what I will say is I was looking at it as a top-down, bottom-up approach, right? So obviously budgeting for sustainable production practices is important. You need the studios and the producers involved in this conversation, but crew members need to feel empowered to also speak up about what their wishes are, um, in terms of sustainability on set. If it's someone like Alex and I who are really passionate about this and we communicate this to our DP or to, let's say, a production manager that we're friends with, I think that people will listen, because what everyone likes to, again, deflect blame sort of. And it's like, oh, well, I'm just a lowly first AC, like I can't, or second AC, like I can't really do anything. That's the DP's job, or that's this person's job. Or again, like we're not as wasteful as a different department. It's easy to sort of point fingers and just sit back and be like, it's not my problem. And I think that what you hear then on the other end from a producer or someone on the hiring kind of on the upper end of things who make the decisions is they didn't even know this was something that was important to the crew. If the crew had said like, I really want, electric generators, I think this technology is actually not just better for our health because we're not inhaling diesel fumes, which is a huge problem. But also, it's quieter for set, right? It's less of an issue for the sound department. Like if you start to speak up, people will listen, and it may be a slow moving process. But again, I do think that even if people like Alex and I don't have a lot of say in the beginning, I think just having these conversations on set, people didn't even know that the Local 600 Sustainability Committee existed, right? But then every show that Alex and I are on, we're constantly talking about it to our peers. They know about it now. It's like the more people you work with, the more you spread the knowledge. And I think that I don't want people to think that they don't have a voice or they can't speak up. I think that there is still things that we can do. And yes, bringing a, reusable water bottle or your own utensils is a starting point, but that's obviously like what we always call low hanging fruit. Like we need to think bigger. And I think that we just need to empower each other to speak up more on set.
Yeah. Yeah, like that personal agency. Everybody's got it. They have that capability. It's a matter of kind of feeling comfortable doing that and finding kind of willing listeners, if you will, I think too. It's also been a bit of a culture thing. Do you think like on production, like it's kind of like I don't know. You guys work like day in, day out on this, but I'm curious, like, do you feel like we sometimes get in our own way in that regard? Like there's been this culture of maybe, top down, like do what you're told, like that kind of thing. Or is it, and is it shifting at all where people do feel more confident speaking up? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely, while I might not have influence at the start of a job, I have a little more influence in the wrap or at the duration in the sense of like, I might email the production office and be like, hey, do you guys have any waste collection going on? Or like, can you, do you have the budget to get one going? Have Homeboy Industries pick it up? Or just talking with my other ACs and be like, do we really need an expendables order that this is this big? Like, can we maybe tailor it or allocate the budget for something else elsewhere? But yeah, in terms of from the get-go, it's much, much harder. But while on set, I think it's a lot of, yeah, just educationally, being the one who keeps their utensils in their tool belt. So I have it when we break for lunch and, texting people and be like, hey guys, I'm collecting e-waste next month. If you got anything, start saving it. I think the tide is changing. There's definitely concerns about like job security moving forward with these new technologies. And I feel like it's easier to reckon with in camera department because our department has shifted so much technologically. I kind of liken the shift of two more sustainable production tools to the film to digital era. It was like a huge disruption. And a lot of people were like, no, it's not going to catch on. And it's like, well, and some people really take charge of it and make their own positions, like we have DITs now, which is great. And I think a similar shift will happen sustainably across the departments, whether that's a whole built out sustainability department when hopefully also 728 making more positions of like, this is, a solar Jenny op and whatnot, or a hydrogen powered generator operator. And it's just that, the titles will shift and the skills will shift, but that's an evolution of what we do, and that's an evolution of what we will learn as workers.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that there is a shift happening. I mean, I will just say from like a Green Committee perspective, in the last like 2 years alone, I think that there have been, at least in LA, I want to say most of the IATSE Hollywood locals have a Green Committee at this point, the 13 Hollywood locals. Um, and or if not, they're in the process of creating it. I think that there have been, I don't want to just like come up with a number, but it's definitely like over 8 new committees, I think, in the last 2 years. We kind of were on the forefront of it. And then the other ones just started rolling. And what's happening is when you start to go, when we're having these kinds of conversations, people hear about it and then they're inspired. And we get emails, right, from folks being like, what you're doing is really inspiring. We want to create this for our local. Can you give us some advice or guidelines on what to do? And so again, kind of to Alex's point, yes, this is a lot of like-minded people. We are the kind of maybe the outliers, sort of, so to speak, but sometimes all it takes is an outlier, right? Like I really do feel it is an uphill battle for sure, but I do feel a lot of positivity around the idea that like we're more validated when we all work together inter like departmentally. So
Mhm.
it's like 600 alone can't achieve a difference, right? Like I think that we can make differences within our department and look inward about what we can do, and so can the others. But together as a collective, we have a voice. And I think that that is gaining momentum. I am seeing that shift. Again, it is like-minded folks, but then all it takes is now all these green committees are now part of the boards of their locals, right? So now they're speaking at the boards where there's other folks who maybe weren't as supportive or maybe haven't heard this conversation be spoken about before. It's really exciting because now craft service has um a green committee, and that's really exciting because of course that's what we hear a lot about in terms of waste on set. And so it's certainly food waste. And so, and single-use plastic bottles, all that stuff. So I think that there is a changing tide. It's slow and maybe it needs to be faster. Perhaps maybe I would just say it does need to be faster, not maybe. Because obviously time is of the essence right now. But yeah, I think that we're moving in a positive direction collectively.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What sort of challenges, I mean, do you guys encounter, or would you say are the top sort of challenges that the industry faces, other than speed?
Um, Education, and just um not seeing its impact. We have studios who have sustainability departments and they are publishing things, but a lot of it is still kind of like under wraps because maybe a lot of it doesn't
Green
look so
hushing.
great.
Green
Yeah,
hushing.
green hushing. Oh, I haven't heard that word. That's so good.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah.
Totally. And personally, I would love to see an expose on just like the trash of the film industry. Like, would be great, like, because, your average Joe doesn't see at wrap what happens to perfectly fine trees and shrubs just going in the trash and like plates of food. It is a crime that in LA, where 1 of 4 people is food insecure, that on set we are throwing away so much perfectly good food. It is so messed up. And so if there's more public knowledge of all of the waste materialistically, food-wise, gas-wise, and more knowledge or like publication of how extreme our carbon footprint is. I know there's that statistic. It's like one tentpole production can power, a neighborhood for a year. And it's like, dear God, what are we doing? We need to be held responsible for these. We need to be held accountable. I think the state needs to make mandates and restrictions and offer incentives to choose the better option. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to not happen.
Yeah, one of the things that we worked on in the last year was creating a local 600 sustainability resolution. And I think that that was really key because I think that for us, it's about sort of looking inward about I kind of mentioned earlier, but our mission statement and what is it that we are set out to accomplish as a local, right? Like, what are our core tenets? And one of the things that we discovered in the language is that it says to fight effectively for a safe workplace, but it's not defined, right? And I think that when people think of safe workplace, maybe environmental hazards aren't the first thing that comes to mind, what it needs to be. And so we set out to kind of talk about air pollution, heat stroke, UV radiation exposure, and all of that. And so when we, in February of this past year, we passed the resolution as a board, and it declared our commitment on behalf of the safety of our crews to encourage and endorse carbon neutral productions through sustainable onset practices. And what that means and how that's implemented, it depends on each project, right? It depends on the budget. It depends on, what genre you're working within. But, looking towards renewable diesel, using electric grid tie-ins, hybrid location power production, all in an effort to sort of achieve an industry net zero. And so I agree with Alex, like, I don't think just passing one resolution is going to change things. This isn't on a state or, like federal level. Obviously, it's just on a union, local labor level. However, I think that, again, we were talked about the PGA call to action letter. Anytime something is going into the press, anytime that, the Hollywood Reporter does like a spread every summer on the environmental hazards, and specifically they focus on the industry. I think that this is important. We need to see this conversation everywhere. We need to see it in the podcast, right? In TV, in the news. And I also think we haven't really talked about this yet, but I also feel like climate storytelling is a really important part of this as well. And while that's not, obviously Alex and I are not creating the stories, but art imitates life. And I think that if in our TVs and movies, we stop seeing single-use plastics and we start to see more stories about climate change, and it doesn't have to be that the story, it doesn't have to be a documentary about climate change. It could be a show, that just insinuates that the world, there's a lot of like sci-fi shows going on right now where it's like, they're living in a bunker, or they're living in a place, and you're like, why are they living like this? And then the reveal at the end of all of these books that then get turned into TV shows is that, oh, the world was destroyed. And the question, the mystery is, how did it get destroyed? And it's always like some nuclear war or some, terrible climate catastrophe. But I feel
Microplastics.
exactly. And I think that maybe that's what I think it's actually great. Like, I mean, it's depressing, but it's also great because if these shows are gaining traction and are becoming really popular, I think it's starting to get in people's minds more like, how unrealistic is this? How sci-fi futuristic is this? This is actually could be tomorrow. And I think that that's really how you're going to start to get people on board. Because I think the key is to sort of shift the minds of the folks that, again, are not necessarily, again, they could be, recyclers. They're avid, recyclers.
Depends where you live, right?
Depends on where you live.
Yeah.
But they're not taking action day to day in other ways. And I think that this is how you start to impact people, is sort of, what you see really does impact your day to day and what you do in your own life.
Just a quick note on the climate storytelling, and we interviewed a couple that wrote a book on like a positive future of like a sci-fi positive future, and that's sort of got us really thinking about that, because a lot of doom and gloom, and it's easy to kind of Mad Max style and living in a bunker, but it is fun to think about those stories that are about the climate changing and about the need to sort of thrive and survive and imagine the future that we all want to live in. And
it's been a lot of work and a lot of responsibility, but this is almost the most important work, is what I realize now. There's really nothing more important. Like, anytime I'm not working as a freelancer, I'm doing the committee's work. And I feel like, yes, it's a volunteer position. It's not an unpaid position, but what's more important than trying to preserve not only our jobs, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't work if there's no planet to work on. So if we get really fundamental, it's like down to the basics. It's like, we need a planet to work and live on. And if we love what we do, how can we keep doing it into the future? And the only way to do that is if we focus on finding creative, implementing creative changes on set so that we can have a planet. Because carbon emissions is like the single most, what is it, 50% of all carbon emissions come from fuel consumption and from on set, from transportation.
And in production. In production.
And so we're part of that. Every department is part of that. We send Teamsters out to go collect one cable from a camera rental house. Why? Can we
In a big
just
truck.
in a big truck? It's like, could we just wait and collect more items and wait until there's like 7 things that they need from that rental house? Like, I know that there's a lot of fear of job security, like Alex was saying earlier. It's like people don't want to get fired because that one cable went bad. I get it. But also we need to like think more about and be more thoughtful about what we're doing day to day, because it does have, these things add up, right? A small action like that can add up if everyone's doing that on every set across the country, right?
But you're
You know,
changing workflow now. Now you're changing like how they
right.
do the job and
Yep.
how they think about it. And, so there's sort of nudging social and sustainable behaviors, and that's not
Yeah,
easy.
correct. It's a really good way to put it. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's where the definition of sustainability goes twofold. It's not just like about, the product, it's about our planet. We're preserving things so we can keep doing the things we do. And when you, Allison, switched from calling it the Green Committee to the Sustainability Committee, I think that reflects that.
Yeah.
It's a good point. It's a good point. A lot of focus on people, a lot of focus on process, and how we
Education.
integrate education, all of that. Sounds like you guys have some good touch points in those spaces. And it's really interesting. I love, Allison, that you mentioned that, you know, the camera department does talk to Teamsters about going to get, cable and going to get a camera from somewhere or something like that, where it's like it is all interrelated. You are engaging with other departments who are doing these things. So there's an element of coordination and collaboration and thinking this through together and all of that, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I think it's so important. Like that's again, seeing all the green committees forming, it's been so inspiring. Like, I think we have, because yes, we can look inward. Obviously, the 600 Sustainability Committee is dedicated to encouraging sustainable, production practices within our own department specifically. But it's been so moving and empowering because we have met so many organizations, not just other IATSE green committees, but like we've mentioned a few, but Everyday Action, Homeboy Industries, different organizations, Trees Atlanta, EcoFixer in Chicago, Green Spark Group, Earth Angel. Like, obviously there's so many, I don't want to not name people, but there's so many organizations and and I'm constantly in awe and inspired by what they're doing. And I think trying to, again, going back to the education part, it's like constantly just trying to spotlight the good work other folks are doing. That's a huge part of what we do too. We're constantly writing content and articles for the Local 600 newsletter. Anytime we have an event that we feel like is building solidarity, we try to get a still photographer out there to, capture the event, to show what it is that we're doing. I think getting that visibility is so key. Having people read about the technology out there, and again, attending these panels, we get a large draw, and I think that again, having 600 be the one that sort of maybe paving the way in some of this has been really great and sort of rewarding for us to see. But also, it's not just about us. Obviously, I think we are only stronger by being with the other folks. And yeah, we need to work with the Teamsters. We need to work with SAG. We need to work with DGA, PGA. Like, this is a huge communal effort. And what we talked about earlier, it's like with COVID, when we saw a global pandemic, a health and safety concern, we came together so quickly and we
So
came
fast.
together. I'm like, if we could just look at the urgency of the planet in the same way, we could come up with something in 3 months. Again, it's not hard. We did it before. The precedent has been set. I mean, COVID set in motion this, set us back so much in waste, but it also showed us what we can accomplish together as a collective in the industry, no matter your position on set. No, everyone was an equal in this, right? In this crisis. And I feel like we need to look at the environmental crisis the same way, personally.
And it showed that the money is there. It can be done.
Yeah.
There is time for more prep.
And film.
And then when you have more prep, you don't need to make those extraneous runs to the rental house for that one cable. Because you got your prep.
And film is a microcosm for being able to show the way forward, right? Because that's like, if we have to be able to do it in film and entertainment industry. I mean, we speak a lot with the music side as well, right? It's like starting to happen now and it's picking up steam, and it's really cool to see how quickly that flywheel's getting going on the live music and live entertainment side. Film, obviously, a little bit more behind the scenes, but I think film really does have that opportunity, and there's people like you guys that are working hard on this. So thank you for your work. as we wrap this up, we've got our final question here, and really around. Oh, we touched on a lot of different points throughout our conversation here, but if you were to create a new playbook and sort of guiding principles around sustainability and entertainment, what would be first, second, third on your list?
Yeah, so I mean, like, obviously by the numbers, fuel and food are the worst offenders in our industry. But I know you guys have talked about those with a lot of other people. So I want to bring a new thing.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I would love to change the culture of cutting. Just like when you roll camera and you cut. It's like a film mentality mindset that like went away with digital, and we just roll and roll and roll and roll. And what that means is we have more data. We need more hard drives. We need more server space to back it up. We need our poor operators. I'm sorry, Allison. Like you're just rolling and rolling and rolling. And it's like, dude, no, we need to cut. We need time for the safety of our workers, for the materialistic demand of rolling. We have to cut. Like it's ridiculous sometimes. And there's not really like it's a really it's a hard thing to draw data on. It's like I feel like there used to be the statistic of like, oh, for every minute of film stock shock, it was like, $100,000 cost of production or something. I don't remember the numbers, but like, what is that number in a digital world for every minute of ARRI raw UHD open gate footage that we shoot? What does that look like on the back end? And it's really hard to define because there's so many ways to back it up, and each production company has its own methodology of like securing their footage and how many backups they need. But it's like, because it's not a physical item, it's kind of lost in the conversation.
There's time too, right? Just even looking at all that information, there's people.
Yeah, the poor
so many
editors who
layers
have
to
to
that.
like
Yeah.
go through it all. And yeah, I think if we cut, we would do our jobs better and there would be less of a physical imprint. So that's my spiel.
Yeah,
great.
I know. I think that's a great idea. And my only other thought was just about prep, which I know we've kind of talked a lot about, but I think that sustainability always needs to be a budget line item in every budget. And I think that it needs to be, I really wish the word sustainability and green and all these things like wasn't even in the conversation. Like I wish it wasn't in the lexicon. I just wish it was like we are doing production
More efficient.
And asterisk is it's more efficient and safer and all the things that we're talking about here. I wish we didn't have to use that word, and I look forward to the time when that word goes away because it's just what it means. But yeah, I think that just it's so important to think about these things at the beginning and when there's time to think about it, because at the end of it, what Alex and I are talking about, which is like what we can do as a camera operator, camera assistant, it's like we're just picking up the pieces of it all at the end. We're doing the recycling. We can, try to make a difference a little bit here and there, but it's small, small things. It's not the big picture. And I think the big picture really is prep. And that's where like all the key players that got brought in at the beginning, below and above the line folks, like they need to have these conversations at the beginning, and there needs to be pressure. There needs to be mandates, like Alex said, nothing you haven't already heard, but tax incentives, obviously, for going green, things like that.
Love all this. This is like information packed. You guys like really doing it, really out there and inspiring people. I'm super excited about all of your work and the ripple effect of this, honestly, like, bringing people together and inspiring those out there doing the work.
In a national effort, in a national way.
Yeah.
Like that's like, I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is how broad a national and, the impact is.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for being on and sharing your perspective on all of this. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun.
Thank you. Well, hello. What a great conversation with those two.
Yeah,
Gosh.
really. I mean, the scope and reach that the local 600 has to make this real on the ground change just kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah. 100%. They're doing so much. And to
Yeah.
learn that, their position is a volunteer position,
Hmm.
they're engaging, nationally and like bringing people along, doing fun activities, initiatives in various cities. I mean, honestly, like
Yeah.
these are the people. I think you
Yeah.
mentioned in the intro, like unsung hero. And
Yeah.
100% believe
Yeah.
that here.
Yeah. And again, these are the folks that are going to make these changes happen. It is a ground up change. It's a top down as well, as they mentioned, but this is truly a ground up. And I love their initiatives. And
No,
oh wow, so I mean, e-waste, of course, and then the planting the trees and bringing in, sort of the grieving process into their
I
work. And
mean,
I mean, God, it's like it's
these people
incredible.
doing amazing things, right? Like honestly, like these are the people out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
and
you.
then
Thank you to you both.
I know, like love it. And then, to think about like our kind of our fun little question that we ask
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
and to
Guiding
hear
principles.
yeah, the guiding principles. Yeah, to hear Alex's response
Yeah.
about, cutting.
Yeah.
At first I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" And then she explained it and I was like, "Of course."
I know. It was just like such a creative answer. And I mean, the implications of that, yeah, I guess we're not paying for film anymore. So we're just running it the whole time.
Yeah, and people are behind the camera running it the whole time.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And
It's
people have
like
to
it's
edit
not,
it and people have to go through it. And the DIT has to
uh,
process it and upload it. I mean, it's like the sort of the run on from all of that work. That's a
this
winner.
goes to show why you ask people in various departments about their ideas, because this is the
Absolutely.
kind of stuff that comes up.
Yeah. Because she's living it every day
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the
Mm-hmm.
implications.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice one, Alex.
Love this conversation. Thank you both. I know we thanked you otherwise, but just thanking you again. Super
Yeah.
great to hear about all the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And
And looking forward to following these initiatives. I mean, with I think 10,000 people, is that what I heard?
yeah, I
And
think that's
like
what
it's
she
a
said.
lot of people. It's a lot of opportunity and touch points for change within the industry.
100%. And then collaborating with other local unions and their
Hmm.
committees and whatnot. I mean, can you imagine what we can do
Hmm.
together? Like this is
Yeah.
we're all capable of it. I mean, this is really good stuff. I could
Yeah.
I could talk about it forever, but just love to hear their thoughts on it. So thank you all for
Yeah.
listening in. Please like and subscribe. We need that to be able to boost our presence in some of these platforms. So do it. Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Send it
Hmm.
to your labor folks. This is all fun, and this is, a lot for you. So
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
hello, entertainment industry. Something I've been working on over the past year with partners U.S. Green Building Council California and Aerith Environmental is the development of the Sustainable Production for Entertainment Certification, or SPEC, as we like to call it.
It's the first certification for the entertainment workforce, and it's now live for folks to sign up.
Yeah, go to the U.S. Green Building Council California website at usgbc-ca.org to learn more about it and to register for an upcoming class. This is a great way to up your sustainability game and gain a professional certification. So this is for you. See you in class. Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Our producer is Colin Miller.